I come from a long line of hunters. I was taught from a young age that everything I need in life can be provided to me by the woods. Though I spent 30 years of my life slaving away in the construction industry, I had a much simpler life in mind. Once I saved up enough money, I bought my dream house, a cozy little cabin in the middle of the Ozark Mountains. It wasn't much, but it was everything I ever wanted. 30 acres of heavily forested land, perfect for deer hunting. I myself haven't lived the most standard life. I have no children, and I've never been married, but I enjoy my time alone. I spend most of my retired days fishing, watching TV, and drinking coffee on my back porch with my yellow lab, Dave. But every year, that alone time goes out the window when my friends, who are all scattered around the US, come to my place for our annual deer hunt. Now, the events I'm about to tell you took place the first year I lived in the mountains. It was the inaugural deer hunt, and while most of my friends were busy with their families, I had ample time to prepare for a great hunt. Being the first year on the land, I really had no idea what to expect. I'd see some deer from time to time, but didn't know which parts of the land were most populous. To get a better idea, I invested in some of the top-of-the-line trail cameras. My thinking was I could set these out on different parts of my property and get a better idea about where we should set the deer stands. I purchased 3 of these cameras and spent about an hour setting them up on different parts of my property. 2 of them were set up near the perimeter of my land on the far northeast and northwest sides, with the last one being set up just near the back of my cabin. I knew this setup would be best for my land, but what I didn't know is that I would be seeing a whole lot more than just animals on those night vision cameras. The next morning, I rolled back the footage and saw quite a bit of wildlife. Raccoons, skunks, and those ugly-ass possums. But what really made me happy was that there were deer, and lots of them. I studied the film for quite some time and started to map out the exact paths of the deer. There seemed to be lots of traffic near the northeast corner of my land. Over the span of the next few days, I continued to play back footage in the morning, until one day, I saw something peculiar. I went to fast forward the footage, as usual, and didn't see much movement, just trees blowing in the wind, until I saw a person. But not just a person, a very small person, perhaps a child. He wasn't there for super long, just long enough to peek at the camera from behind a tree. This definitely startled me, as my nearest neighbor is close to 1 mile from my land. I wish I could say this was a one-time occurrence, but I ended up seeing the kid 3 times. He was always wearing the same dirty gray hoodie, never vandalizing or stealing like most kids would do at 3 a.m., just staring intently. And the weirdest part was the effect my night vision cameras had on his eyes. Like, I'm sure it was just the cameras, but this kid's eyes were 90% pupil. Big, dark pupils that would almost stare through my cameras. I have no idea how long this kid has been coming down to my place, but I suspect a while. My dog, Dave, has barked during the early morning hours since I moved in, and it just occurred to me that maybe this kid is a regular. A few more nights went by with no sightings. I thought maybe his family finally realized his late-night habits and busted him. Until one morning, I woke up to find something very disturbing. Out back by the camera by my house, I found a squirrel nailed to the tree. The squirrel's eyes had been gouged out and replaced with black marbles. Next to the squirrel was a note that was also nailed to the tree. Chillingly, all it said was, "We are here." That was enough for me. My shotguns were instantly out of their cabinets and behind every door of my house. I was taught to defend yourself and to never run, and that's what I planned on doing. That night, I cooked up some venison, planned on staying up all night to protect myself. Around 11 p.m., I turned off the lights in my house and sat on the couch with phone in hand. I found a cool way to split screen the cameras so that I could see all three at one time. The camera company also scammed me into paying a $5 a month for monitoring that night so I'd get a notification on my phone if the cameras detected a human. I watched for what felt like, probably were, hours before drifting into a deep sleep. Around 2:30 a.m., I felt my phone buzz.
Human activity has been detected on your camera.
I stood up and I grabbed my shotgun. It was difficult to see, and while I was trying to adjust my eyes, I received another notification.
Human activity has been detected on your camera.
I stormed out the door with shotgun in hand. My adrenaline was pumping, and my heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. I held my gun in firing position and was met with pure silence. Just the sounds of bugs in the night. I looked at my phone and noticed the child standing at the far northeast camera. I don't know what got into me, but I instantly started sprinting towards the camera. I got there minutes later and of course saw nothing. I'm not gonna lie, it was a long and creepy walk back through my dark property. I decided to call it a night when I got back. I locked my doors and turned my phone off and went to sleep. The next morning, I was scared to walk outside and see what was left for me this time around. More dead squirrels? An ominous note? Nothing. It was a beautiful day, no threat to be found. I decided to take the opportunity to install a few more cameras. I purchased 5 more of the same trail cams and scattered them all throughout the rest of my property. By now I probably looked like the old senile man, and I sure felt that way too. That night was the night it all changed. I had the same plan as the night before: watch the cameras and shoot anything that threatens me and my property. My shotgun was ready to go, and of course, I fell asleep again. But instead of waking up to a camera notification, I woke up to Dave growling, a slow, deep growl, almost as if something across the room was standing there in the darkness. I stood up very slowly. The second I made it to my feet, he stopped, and there was about 3 seconds of pure silence. When suddenly, my phone went off. This time, my phone wasn't on silent, but instead let out a shrill siren sound.
Human activity has been detected on your camera.
I stormed out the door and was met with dozens of kids. They all looked the same. Dirty gray hoodies, enormous black eyes. I fired a few shots and saw that they were unaffected. They just kept slowly walking towards me. I eventually made the decision to grab my dog, get in the truck, and get the hell out of there. I floored it and sped past even more children. All looked the same. Now I know I said that I don't run from fear, but I did that night. I fled 4 hours north to St. Louis and stayed with some distant relatives. I had a decision to make the next day. Do I stay here in St. Louis, or do I return to my cabin and defend my property? I decided to stay an extra night and was glad that I did.
Human activity has been detected on your camera.
I received the same message not once, not 10 times, but hundreds of times that night. And I am proud to say I have not been back since. I never disabled the monitoring service and still receive notifications saying humans have been detected on my cameras. It has been 4 years, and they never stop.